Who did?
The soldiers.
The soldiers? Why?
The Boy in the Striped Pajamas isn't a film you just watch, it's one you feel. Through the eyes of two children on opposite sides of a fence, it tells a story grounded in very real pain, silence, and innocence lost. But behind that quiet, heartbreaking ending lies a production full of powerful choices, haunting performances, and deep moral questions. In this video, we're uncovering 20 heartbreaking and little-known facts about the 2008 film, from its cast and music to its historical criticisms and the moments that still leave audiences stunned. Let's begin. Fact 1. The story was written in just 2.5 days. John Boyne, the author of The Boy in the Striped Pajamas, wrote the entire first draft in a single burst of inspiration over just 2.5 days. He locked himself in his office and didn't stop until the final sentence was written. He later said he didn't even read it back until he was done, because the story flowed out of him with such urgency. That unfiltered, almost stream of consciousness style shaped the tone of both the book and the film. It explains why the story feels so emotionally raw and direct, especially the ending, which hits with a quiet intensity that's hard to shake. Boyne described it not as historical fiction, but as a moral fable, told through the limited understanding of a child. And that framing became the foundation for the entire film adaptation. Fact 2. The film was never meant to be a history lesson. Although The Boy in the Striped Pajamas is set during a very real and dark period in history, the filmmakers were clear from the beginning. This was not meant to be a historically accurate account. Director Mark Herman and author John Boyne both described the story as a moral fable, a fictional tale designed to explore innocence, empathy, and moral blindness. That's why the film avoids using specific names, dates, or real locations. It doesn't try to explain the larger political context. Instead, it shows how a child's limited understanding can lead to tragic consequences. While some viewers expected a historically grounded film, its real purpose was to provoke emotional reflection, not to educate on the facts. And that's also why it sparked such strong responses in both praise and criticism from educators and historians alike. Fact 3. The child actors weren't told everything.
Is it really horrible in the camp?
How dare you talk to people in the house?
Asa Butterfield and Jack Scanlon, who played Bruno and Shmuel, were just 10 and 9 years old during filming. Because of their age and the sensitive nature of the story, the director made a deliberate choice not to explain the full context of their character's situation. Instead of focusing on the real-world events behind the story, Mark Herman guided the boys to focus only on what their characters knew: confusion, curiosity, and an unlikely friendship. This approach allowed their performances to feel authentic, childlike, unaware, and emotionally honest. Asa later said he didn't fully understand the story's deeper meaning until years after filming, which is exactly what makes his portrayal of Bruno so believable. Like Bruno, he was simply trying to make sense of a world he didn't yet understand. Fact 4. The film's German release required extra caution. When The Boy in the Striped Pajamas was released in Germany, it was met with intense scrutiny, not because of the title or content alone, but because of the country's role in the real historical events. The title remained the same in German, but the marketing team took special care to clarify one crucial point. This was a fictional story, not a historical account. In Germany, where the Holocaust is taught with unflinching detail and legal boundaries exist around denial or distortion, the film's emotional and simplified portrayal of Bruno's family sparked concern. To avoid misunderstandings, especially among younger viewers, distributors added context in the film's promotional material. They emphasized that the story was fictional and not meant to replace or reflect real history. This careful approach shows just how powerful and sensitive the subject matter is. Fact 5. The entire film was shot in just 5 weeks.
I told you they were strange.
Who?
The farmers. They wear pajamas.
Despite its emotional depth and polished look, The Boy in the Striped Pajamas was filmed in an incredibly short time of just 5 weeks. The entire production took place in and around Budapest, Hungary, using real outdoor locations rather than studio sets. This tight schedule meant the cast and crew had to work quickly and efficiently, often completing important scenes in only 1 or 2 takes. That pressure added a natural tension to many moments, especially the scenes near the fence and the film's devastating final act. The short filming window also helped keep the performances fresh and emotionally charged, especially for the young actors. Their reactions feel immediate, unpolished, and deeply human. Fact 6. The fence was built purely for the film.
I thought you weren't coming. I'm sorry. It wasn't easy to get
The fence that separates Bruno and Shmuel is one of the most memorable images in the entire film. But what many people don't know is that it wasn't filmed on any real-world location. It was constructed entirely for the movie. Filmed in Hungary, the production team designed and built the site from scratch on an empty field. Director Mark Herman didn't just want a realistic setting, he wanted something that felt symbolic. The fence isn't just a barrier between two boys. It represents fear, misunderstanding, and the invisible lines that divide people in times of war. It's clean, almost too perfect, which makes it even more unsettling. There's no violence shown around it, just quiet, cold separation. By building the fence in such a controlled, isolated location, the filmmakers ensured that every scene around it would feel timeless and stripped of distraction. Just two boys, a stretch of wire, and everything the world didn't let them understand.
Fact 7. It sparked intense debates among historians and some survivors. After its release, The Boy in the Striped Pajamas stirred a great deal of debate in academic and educational circles. Many historians expressed concern that the film's portrayal of events might distort public understanding, especially among young viewers. They pointed out that a child like Shmuel, who is seen regularly speaking with Bruno across the fence and appearing relatively healthy, would not likely have survived in such conditions. Despite these concerns, some educators saw the film as a valuable tool to introduce young people to broader conversations about empathy, ethics, and the crime of dehumanization. However, most agreed it should be accompanied by historical context. The emotional impact of the story is undeniable, but its lack of strict historical accuracy makes it a starting point for discussion, not a definitive portrayal of events. Fact 8. Shmuel's outfit was carefully designed to feel real.
Have you got any food on you? No.
The striped uniform that Shmuel wears wasn't just a costume. It was designed to quietly reflect his reality. The film's costume department paid close attention to detail, choosing fabrics that looked authentic but were soft enough for a child to wear for long hours on set. Each outfit was hand-aged to appear worn and lived in, without being overly dramatic. The goal was subtle realism. They didn't want Shmuel to look theatrical. They wanted him to look like a real boy in an unthinkable situation. This careful design helped reinforce the emotional tone of the film. Shmuel's quiet appearance, his thin frame, and the faded stripes say more than words ever could. Fact 9. Asa and Jack were kept apart off camera. To preserve the emotional distance between Bruno and Shmuel, the filmmakers made a surprising choice. They limited how much time Asa Butterfield and Jack Scanlon spent together off camera. This wasn't because the boys didn't get along. They did. But the director wanted their on-screen friendship to feel cautious and unfamiliar, just like it is in the story. Bruno is curious, unsure, and a little awkward around Shmuel, and that dynamic was easier to capture if the boys weren't too comfortable with each other in real life. The result is a friendship that feels fragile and real. Two boys learning to trust each other in a world that's taught them to stay apart. Fact 10. The actor who played Bruno's father struggled with guilt.
It still make you feel special, Ralph dear. The uniform. And what it stands for.
David Thewlis, who portrayed Bruno's father, found the role emotionally draining. To prepare, he read letters and memoirs from real Nazi officers, which disturbed him deeply. He even admitted to having nightmares during filming and was brought to tears after seeing the completed movie. Thewlis described feeling haunted by the character and said it was one of the most difficult roles of his career. Although he was portraying a fictional character, the reality behind the mindset and actions of such men weighed heavily on him. His performance was not just acting, it was a personal confrontation with a dark piece of human history. Fact 11. Jack Scanlon was discovered at a local school audition. Jack Scanlon, who gave an unforgettable performance as Shmuel, wasn't a professional actor before this film. In fact, he was discovered through a local audition held at his school's drama club in Kent. Director Mark Herman held open casting calls across the UK, and when Scanlon was paired with Asa Butterfield for a chemistry test, their connection was so natural and moving that Herman knew he'd found his Shmuel. Despite his lack of experience, Jack's quiet presence and emotional depth brought the character to life in a way that resonated with audiences around the world. Fact 12. The film's ending is different from the book. The ending of The Boy in the Striped Pajamas is haunting, but the way it's portrayed differs greatly between the book and the film. In John Boyne's novel, the tragedy unfolds quietly and with subtlety. Readers are not shown Bruno's fate in detail. Instead, the horror is revealed gradually through his family's desperate search and the father's final silent understanding of what had happened. It's an emotional gut punch, but one that creeps up slowly, relying on implication more than description. The film, on the other hand, takes a much more visual and immediate approach. Director Mark Herman chose not to shy away from showing the audience exactly what unfolds in the final moments. There's no ambiguity, just silence, tension, and a painfully slow realization as the events play out in real time. The camera lingers, not allowing viewers to escape the weight of the scene. This choice was deliberate. Herman wanted the audience to feel the full force of what Bruno's decision led to, especially through the perspective of the innocent friendship he had with Shmuel. Fact 13. Despite being shown at schools, the movie was never intended for children. Despite having two young boys at the center of its story, The Boy in the Striped Pajamas was never meant to be a children's film. The themes it explores, such as loss, innocence, and the horrors of prejudice, are far too complex and emotionally heavy for a young audience. Director Mark Herman and author John Boyne both clarified that the film was made for adults, with the goal of offering a unique and powerful perspective on one of history's darkest periods. The innocence of the characters is meant to highlight the cruelty of the world around them, not to make the story more accessible to children. In fact, the stark contrast between Bruno's naivety and the audience's understanding of what's really happening is what makes the story so emotionally devastating. The film was rated PG-13 in many countries not because it downplayed its subject matter, but because it relied more on emotional impact than graphic imagery. That subtle approach made the story even more haunting, especially for adult viewers who understood the full context. Fact 14. The book was rejected at first. Before The Boy in the Striped Pajamas became a global phenomenon, it was repeatedly rejected by publishers. Author John Boyne faced significant pushback not because the story lacked depth or writing quality, but because it dared to tell the story through the eyes of a young German boy. Critics argued that this perspective was too controversial, and some believed it risked minimizing the true horrors of history by centering the narrative on a German soldier's family. Despite the criticism, Boyne believed in the emotional power of the story. He wanted to explore how innocence, especially in children, can exist even in the darkest times. Bruno and Shmuel may not have been real boys, but their friendship represented something deeply human. Empathy without boundaries. Eventually, a publisher took a chance on the manuscript. The risk paid off. The book didn't just sell, it resonated. Readers around the world connected with its message of lost innocence, blind obedience, and devastating consequences. It went on to be published in over 45 languages, reaching millions of readers globally and becoming a staple in classrooms and book clubs alike. What started as a rejected manuscript turned into one of the most talked about and emotionally impactful novels of the 21st century. Fact 15. Bruno's father was inspired by real military leaders.
Because I'm a soldier. Soldiers fight war.
David Thewlis, who played Bruno's father, didn't base his character on a single historical figure. Instead, he studied the mindset and behaviors of multiple real-life military leaders from that time period, focusing not on violence, but on how they justified their actions. What disturbed him most during his research was how calmly many of these men spoke. They didn't see themselves as villains. In their minds, they were just following orders, protecting their families, or serving a higher cause. Thewlis brought that cold logic into his performance. Bruno's father is stern, composed, and emotionally distant, but he's not played like a cartoon villain. That makes him even more unsettling. He's a reminder that some of the most devastating decisions in history were made not with anger, but with quiet conviction. Fact 16. The director removed most historical specifics on purpose. Director Mark Herman made a bold and deliberate choice during production. He stripped the film of specific historical details. There are no dates, names of real locations, or political figures mentioned. The goal wasn't to diminish the gravity of the historical setting, but to shift the focus away from technical accuracy and toward the emotional experience of the characters. By avoiding direct references to real-world specifics, Herman aimed to create a timeless moral fable rather than a straightforward historical drama. This creative decision allows the audience to view the story more universally as a warning about what happens when prejudice goes unchecked, rather than just a commentary on one moment in history. While this approach received mixed reviews, it undeniably contributed to the film's haunting, almost dreamlike quality. Fact 17. Asa Butterfield was only 9 years old during filming.
But I might bleed to death.
No, you won't.
Asa Butterfield, who played the role of Bruno, was just 9 years old when filming began. Despite his young age, he gave a remarkably nuanced and emotionally layered performance. Butterfield had to carry the emotional weight of the entire story, portraying a boy who is curious, kind-hearted, and tragically unaware of the world around him. His natural innocence was a perfect match for the character of Bruno, and much of the film's heartbreak comes from how believably he embodies the role. In interviews, the filmmakers praised Butterfield's maturity on set and his ability to navigate such a heavy role without fully understanding the historical context behind it. Today, his performance is still considered one of the most powerful child roles in modern cinema. Fact 18. It was banned in some schools for being too emotional. Although widely shown in classrooms, The Boy in the Striped Pajamas has also been banned or discouraged in some schools, particularly in the UK and Ireland. Critics argue that its emotional storytelling risks give students a distorted view of history if it's presented without proper educational framing. Some educators found that students came away with more sympathy for the fictional German family than for the millions of real victims. The emotional power of the film is undeniable, but that power has also sparked concern. Teachers and historians stress the importance of using the film alongside factual materials to ensure students understand the historical realities behind the fiction. When used appropriately, it can open powerful conversations, but without context, it risks misleading young minds. Fact 19. The music reflects Bruno's journey.
Composer James Horner, known for emotional scores in Titanic and A Beautiful Mind, crafted the soundtrack for The Boy in the Striped Pajamas that quietly follows Bruno's emotional journey. At the start of the film, the music is gentle and filled with wonderful light piano and soft strings that reflect Bruno's innocence and curiosity. But as the story unfolds, those warm melodies begin to fade. They're replaced by colder, more haunting tones that mirror the growing sense of fear and confusion. By the final scenes, the score becomes nearly silent, letting the tension speak for itself. Horner didn't want the music to manipulate emotions. He wanted it to disappear into the background, like a shadow that follows Bruno all the way to the end. Fact 20. The film's budget was small, but its impact was huge. The Boy in the Striped Pajamas was created on a relatively small budget of around $12.5 million, especially modest by Hollywood standards. It didn't rely on big-name stars, elaborate sets, or expensive effects. Instead, it focused on intimate storytelling, strong performances, and emotional weight. Despite the quiet release and sensitive subject matter, the film went on to earn over $44 million at the global box office. Its success proved that a deeply human story told with sincerity and restraint can reach audiences around the world even without a massive marketing push. The Boy in the Striped Pajamas may be a fictional story, but the emotions it evokes are painfully real. It's a film that stays with you long after the credits roll because it reminds us of the innocence lost in times of cruelty and the dangers of ignorance and unawareness. If this film moved you or if you learned something new, consider subscribing for more deep dives into powerful films like this one. Don't forget to like, leave a comment with your thoughts or favorite scene, and share this video with someone who needs to see it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.